welcome indeed to Commonwealth Business Women Network Film Night. Filmmaking is an opportunity to live many lifetimes. And for some of us, even film watching is an opportunity to live many lifetimes. My name is Nana Wanjau, the chairperson of the Commonwealth Business Women Network, Kenya, and the Cbwn Region Lead, Africa. So the movie under discussion today is Poacher. Poacher themed. A poacher is a daring farmer who steals illicit ivory from a group of international terrorists. So let's figure out how that unfolded. A little bit about Commonwealth Business Women Network, Kenya. Who are we? We are the ground partner of Commonwealth Business Women Network, Cbwnk. Cbwnk is a registered community interest company in the United Kingdom. Cbwnk is an accredited organization directly recognized by 54 governments across 6 continents. We are committed to advancing the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5 and the Commonwealth Charter. Commonwealth Business Women Network, we are focused on women's leadership and economic empowerment. We have a mandate to network over 1 billion women within the Commonwealth for the sole purpose of connecting, collaborating, and doing commerce. Having said that, our mission is to strengthen the Commonwealth, build businesses, and advance women through what we call our 3 T's: talent, trade, and training. And today we are going to see Kenya's talent on this platform. Through these 3 T's, we are able to encourage, enable, and embed women's leadership and economic empowerment. So why are we here? In alignment with our vision and mission of building businesses and advancing women, the creative industry is a huge potential for women's economic empowerment, as well as women's leadership, participation in leadership. Today, I said we are going to see some of the young Kenyan talent, and that is what we are dealing with at Commonwealth Business Women, identifying this talent, working with them, nurturing them, going through training programs to advance them to the next level where they would go beyond where they are now to the global market. The third last point is one of Commonwealth's 4 priorities when it comes to gender equality is gender and climate change, or gender and environment. When you watch Poacher, you will understand why Commonwealth Business Women Network is involved in this space of protecting our heritage, protecting our forests, working with the environment, and anybody who's already in that platform. Before I introduce our lovely guests today, I will share with you my little adventure. About 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of going to the Masai Mara to witness the largest every year in a clockwise direction across the ecosystem of the Serengeti in Tanzania and Masai Mara in Kenya. I also had the privilege and opportunity and honor and excitement of watching the Big 5, the lion hunting, the leopards, the rhino, the African buffalo, and of course, the majestic herds of elephants. Weeks later, I watched The Poacher. And there is one line that really grabbed me when the poacher takes Nicola, who is the pilot, to show her where he had buried the stolen ivory. And in Swahili, the poacher, rather the thief, says, ni majambazi wanaoua ndovu zenu. Ni majambazi wanaoua ndovu zenu. It's the criminals that are killing your elephants. And Nicola looks at him and says, zetu, they are also yours, ni zako pia. And that really grabbed me because yes, indeed, these are our elephants, these are our iconic animals, these are our heritage. We must protect it. So it's difficult to watch people who are still killing these iconic animals for pleasure and for trophies. But you and I have a part to play because the poacher leaves us with some hope. Hope in conservation, in protecting the animals, in protecting our forests. You and I, what can we do? Let's go to those zoos. Let's visit the parks. Let's pay those park fees. Let's plant trees. Pay the park fees so that the conservation efforts can continue. Let's support the young talents that we are seeing here today that are already doing their bit in conserving our environment. With those few remarks, as I say, karibu tena to the Commonwealth Business Women Network Film Night. It's indeed a pleasure to introduce our guests, starting with Mwajuma. Mwajuma Bell is an award-winning, can we see Mwajuma? Give us your video if, yes, there you are. Mwajuma Bell is an award-winning actress, film producer, and has made her debut on Netflix in 2020 as an actress in the film Poacher. She's also an alumni of Berliner Talent Campus 2019, which is an arm of the Berlin Film Festival. More than anything, she loves nurturing upcoming actors and actresses. She has won Best Actress Machawood Film Festival 2018 and Best Actress Coast Film Festival 2019. Last year, she was nominated in the category Best Lead Actress in the prestigious Kalasha Film Festival. I feel like I'm on red carpet today.
I know. It feels weird to hear you say, oh, I don't know why, but well.
Next, Maureen So is a 19-year-old wildlife conservationist. She's initiated her own wildlife club for the youth known as Wild Now Foundation after discovering that the youth, making the largest part of the population in Kenya, have not been nurtured in conservation issues. It's an entirely youth-run organization with the main focus on wildlife conservation. She has been featured in the biggest elephant campaign currently in Kenya and Africa, RIP Off campaign, which was led by Her Excellency, the First Lady, Margaret Kenyatta, Dr. Richard Branson, and CEO of Safaricom, Michael Joseph. Her story has been featured in both local and international stations as an influential young leader in Kenya who was nicknamed Cheetah Girl after BBC featured her story on cheetah and volunteerism. Oh, wow. Renee, our awesome moderator, today you're going to have a field day with this young talent. We are honored to have Renee Ngamau as our moderator today. Renee is a business coach under her brand name, Renee Essence. Look her up on social media. Renee, I hand this over to you, but I'm not going far because I want to take notes. I have already seen how we are going to work with these young people going forward.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for your very kind words, Nana. And hi, Mwajuma. Hi, Maureen.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
Awesome. It's just so great to have you on board. And first of all, let me just start by congratulating you, Mwajuma, and the entirety of the cast, the crew, the producers, and everyone for this debut on Netflix. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So great to see ourselves, to see our homes, the places that we know, the places that are familiar to us, and the stories and the sounds that are so familiar to us. I think Lupita Nyong'o, in when she was launching her book, Sule, talked about the importance of seeing ourselves in our own stories, and of course echoing lots and lots of the great thinkers before her, and great people in the creative arts. So this is fantastic. And of course to you, Maureen, most people won't know this, so let me just say it in advance. Happy first anniversary.
Oh, very much.
Yes, it is. Yes. Well, I'll be telling you a little bit about that. If you don't know what it is, actually, I'll get Maureen to tell us about what that is in a short while. But first, let's just dive into the movie. So I did a little bit of research around Poacher. And first, it was so great to just see you, Mwajuma, and then lots of others, the actors and actresses, producers, and names that aren't just from home, but are actually people who I do know. So that was just so lovely to see. And there's something about that that affirms us and who we are. But what most people don't know is that Poacher was actually intended to be it was intended as a series, wasn't it, Mwajuma? Did you know this?
Oh, yes, I did. I know it was intended to be a series. This we learned from the director and writer, Davina and Tom Whitworth. That was the initial plan, but then production issues, they settled to having it as a short film first, which I think turned out well. Well, here we are on Netflix. So
yes, indeed. Here you are on Netflix. And a little bit about, so spoiler alert for everyone who's watching who hasn't watched it on Netflix yet. I'm going to get Mwajuma to tell you what it's about. So this is the point where you look away, go make yourself a cup of coffee, or indeed get some popcorn. So Mwajuma, a little bit about what the movie is about and your role in it.
What? Please say that again.
Tell us a little bit about what the movie is about and also your role in it.
Oh, okay, great. Now I heard you. So Poacher is a short film. It's basically on what happens with poaching in Kenya. It's about a young guy who is struggling, is living a very, very hard life, and is really working hard to provide for his family. And they are living in this setting where there are elephants that visit them often, destroy their crops. And and at the end of it all, and this role is played by Brian Ogola, he's just struggling to make ends meet for himself. But at the same time, there is the issue of poaching, and then we are having people who are killing the elephants. And so then it begs the question, the dilemma comes in, like now Brian being the lead in this film, does he go for providing for his family, or does he go for making sure that these guys who are committing this crime on poaching and everything else are put, behind bars. So that's basically the story of Poacher. And we see the struggle that he actually goes through. His child is sick. So what is he supposed to do? And one thing I really like about this film is that it shows different sides. It shows the side of a normal human being who wants to survive, and then it shows the other side of poaching in Kenya, what it is and how people are involved about it, and the criminal side of it. And actually people are actually even losing lives, not even just the elephants, but actually human beings, because you get a lot of people who are shot in this film, and well, that is the reality in the ground. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what Poacher is all about.
And of course, you play as...
Yes, I played Grace. Grace is a secretary in this wildlife institution. and given any secretary anywhere. We usually know the nitty-gritties of what's happening in the offices. As secretary, we even know this boss did not sleep in his house last night. You get what I mean? So basically, Grace just knows everything that is going on in this setting. And in the little moments that we encounter her, we get to realize that she is not at peace with Nicola, which is played by Davina, simply because she's against whatever it is that Davina is propagating for. And also she just doesn't like Davina's habits, and that's drinking. Yeah, so basically in the little time that we encounter Grace, that is her, and that is her role. I actually wonder what her role would develop to be if this was a series. I don't know, but well, that's it. That's it about Grace.
In fact, I asked myself that, and I'd love for us to just come back and maybe be a little bit creative ourselves and see what that would develop into. But I want to bring Maureen into this conversation because Mwajuma has, of course, touched on a number of issues that are the reality qua ground, you know. And one of the things that she has said is just about this conflict. Let's start off with the land conflict, with the human-wildlife conflict, particularly as relates to human habitation on either wildlife paths or so near wildlife that it is inevitable that the wildlife will come into the farms or that the people will, you know, have encounters with wildlife, specifically with elephants in this case. And I know you grew up in Laikipia, and so this is a common occurrence, or at least not an uncommon occurrence in Laikipia. Talk a little bit about what the land tenure system has done and what the demands of land have done towards engaging or perpetrating that conflict. Yes, I'm throwing you in the deep end right away, Maureen. I'm not even giving you an opportunity to come in easy.
No worries at all, Renee. Thank you for that. So yes, I grew up in Laikipia County, and if you love animals, you know that Laikipia is one of the best destinations for wildlife in Kenya. And our home was centered just next to the forest. And when I watched Poachers, I related a lot to what human-wildlife conflict is because I've experienced it firsthand. When I was a kid, I even remember there was a point the community was annoyed on how elephants were causing a lot of distractions to their crops. And what they decided to do is using a block of wood. Let me just demonstrate, like using this size of wood, they'll hammer a bit bigger. They'll hammer like a 6-inch nail on the block of wood and then just leave it on the farmland. And then at night when the animals are grazing, the elephants, they'll literally step on it. And you would imagine walking for miles with a 6-inch nail on your foot. So it was a ruthless way to protect themselves from elephants, which I never understood because to me, I think I grew up loving animals, and the fact that the community didn't appreciate the coexistence that we needed didn't make sense at that point to me. Now, as a conservationist, and now that I understand the concepts of conservation in human-wildlife conflict, one of the issues that we are having with even land degradation and people encroaching into wildlife habitat is because one, of course, is education. Because majority of the people, for you to coexist, you need to understand the importance of wildlife. You need to know the amount of harm that you're causing by you poaching this animal. But then at the same time, there's a thin line between human-wildlife conflict and poaching. And they all have the same effects at the end of the day, but it evolves around 3 things: education and sustainability. You need to educate the community to embrace what we have as Africans. And I love the fact that Nana pointed out one of my favorite statements from the movie itself, which was, I don't have it clearly, but it in a nutshell, it was just talking about the fact that we are saying elephants ni wazungu, it's not ours. when in real sense, we need to love what we have as Africans and not appreciate skyscrapers and railways and infrastructure, but appreciate the difference that we have as Africans, which is agriculture and wildlife and environment. So the first thing that you need to do when you're overcoming human-wildlife conflict, from my understanding, even as a young person and someone who's gone through the situation, is always education and sustainability. Because when we are even looking at accountability of poachers, who is really accountable of poaching? We point it and blame it to the poacher on the ground who has gone through a lot of poverty and has no alternative on what to do to bring food to the table. Like what was demonstrated in Poachers was this Brian, the main actor, the kid was sick. You can't blame a parent who's basically looking for the well-being of the family. He'll do whatever is possible to make sure that the kids are fine. And if it means them poaching, then who are we to arrest this guy when he was doing it for the good of his family? However, that being said, why is it that there is lack of employment? Why is it that you're not giving these communities an opportunity to join the conservation effort, for them to be able to have income and appreciate what they can from wildlife conservation? So from growing up in Laikipia, from all that I've said, I think one thing that we need to understand is poachers and people who are affected by human-wildlife conflict, there are bigger forces that are accountable to this. And the best way to deal with it is to not have extreme measures when you're dealing with poachers, but also try to figure out the policies and educate people on how to go about the issue. So when you're talking about conservation, it's one topic that's it's huge, because there's a line of people and wildlife. So you need to have a balance. And I come as a wildlife conservationist, but also the humanity aspect of it has to be there. So you need to have a balance, because it's a whole ecosystem. We are all chained, and it's a whole web where we depend on each other. An elephant depends on a bee depends on an elephant, we depend on bees. So yes.
I love that you've created that sort of chain of dependency, I think, and chain of coexistence. But you're right, we keep coming back to sort of that statement, because it was just such a seminal statement in the movie, where the where the character of Brian says, Ndovu zenu, your elephants, and of course the retort is, our elephants, they're your elephants too. And I want to ask Mwajuma, I know this is in taking on this role, in fact, even in being Kenyan, we're always aware of that contrast and juxtaposition, and sometimes uncomfortable sitting between what is ours and what others have come to conserve for us. The engagement of what seems in this short film to be the greater concern of foreigners for animals over people. And that, of course, has expressed itself a number of times in real life, where there's a question of, why are we compensating for animals and we're not taking care of the people inland? We've seen it in Meru, we've seen it in Laikipia, in fact, we've seen it in Amboseli and in other places where that conflict has happened. Talk a little bit to how does one find, or how should we find the balance between conserving because they are ours, conserving whether it's elephants, the environment, wildlife, because it is our heritage. And the reality of the fact that conservation requires a huge amount of money, great infrastructure, a lot of strategy, which we don't seem to be able to raise without having NGOs or foreign charities come in to support us.
Well, to answer your question and to just talk a bit about it, I would just start by talking about this thing that had been in my mind when we started this project, Poacher. When I read the script the first time, and I was like, why is it that I, as Mwajuma, I have never really bothered or never really known what's going on when it comes to matters conservation of the animals and matters poaching. So then it begs the question, is it me who's not researching enough, or is it that the government is not telling us much about what the situation is on the ground, or what is really the problem? And I don't know, it's just a question that has been in my mind. And looking at the situation, for example, in Poacher, you are going through a hard time, of course. So I'm just wondering, what are you supposed to do as a Kenyan, for example? Are you supposed to go out there and shoot the animals dead, and at the end of it all get your due? Or are you supposed to, lay back and wait and assume that these animals belong to the white people, for example, that they are not really ours? What's my part? How am I owning, how am I relating to the fact that I am Kenyan and these animals are in our ground? And as much as we are having people from outside the world who, they bring us a lot of money to come and see these animals and stuff like that. What is that line? For me, that's the question. And just going through Poacher, I actually just wondered, what's that missing link? Is it that probably in our schools we're not taught a lot about animal conservation and stuff like that? I think that's where I am. That's where my line of thought is when it comes to all this, because there is a lot that I learned while I was on set while shooting Poacher. I got to realize what it means to live next to an elephant. They're not dangerous as probably I was brought up knowing that they are. And at the end of it all, there are communities that are living next to them and they have to survive. Just like she said, Some said, we are all dependent on each other. Yeah, so for me, that's where I am when it comes to this issue. Yeah.
That's great. Well, so what is the problem, Some? Is it that, you run an organization, of course, Wild Now, that's all about not just awareness raising, but active participation, so active citizenry around this area. What is the problem? Is it that we're not taught, or we're not taught to value? Where is the disconnect that has Kenyans generally, and young Kenyans, of course, because they are the majority, not really concerned about that which is our heritage, but which we won't interact with on a daily basis? Certainly we will have to go out of our way for the majority of us to interact with. Where's the disconnect that is stopping us, or that is limiting us from engaging fully in wildlife conservation? And what can we do about it?
Well, it's more of a stereotype. It's more of a stereotype that we have, I don't want to say been manipulated, but we have been manipulated to believe that this is kazi ya mzungu, when in real sense, it's our own, because it belongs to our home in Africa. Now, I remember when I started officially working for wildlife as a conservationist, a lot of the statements that I would get from people is, lazima yeye ni mzungu fulani, lazima she's someone's child, like they will associate you with someone who's not African, when in real sense, you're doing it out of love and the knowledge that you have. So there are three stereotypes actually that are in conservation. One is it's a white man's job. Two, it's not for young people, for older men and women. And three is only the rich can do it. Now, when I was looking at myself, I don't think I ticked any of those boxes, yet I am a conservationist. So it's all in your mind. And as Africans, and what I'm proud of even with Wild Now is we have made conservation cool, if I can say. Now, nowadays, I have a lot of young people and my peers who are going abroad to study environmental science. That was something that parents were not open to for kids to study. It's either you're studying law, a doctor, those common courses at that time. So right now, I think young people are stepping out of their the bubble that we had and wanting to discover more about Africa, because Africa is it's a continent that many people highly depend on, but we don't see that in ourselves. So it's taken years, but I think we are on the right direction right now, especially with the young people. There's this university in Rwanda, African Leadership University. They hold the Business of Conservation Conference. I went for that conference last year, 2019. It was a brilliant conference. And they were talking about critical issues about wildlife, about agriculture, and about young people. So if we start engaging on such conversations, then all these stereotypes will be no more in future. So I think where it started from is, well, historically, white people are the ones who embraced wildlife for what it was when they came. We were so used to seeing them. You will wake up and these Maasais will just fight with lions normally. It was nothing big to us. But right now we've reached a stage where we are realizing that, oh my God, this is something that we need, and this is something that's the heritage of Africa. So it's all in our mind. It's more of a stereotype, but I think we are on the right direction, especially as the young people, to overcome those stereotypes. Yes.
It's interesting that you say historically, because the history before that history is, of course, a history of a continent found very rich in wildlife, suggesting that, in fact, conservation has always been, conservation has not even existed in the form in which it does, that our history is one of coexistence and a real understanding of that symbiotic relationship that Mwajuma has mentioned. And that in coexisting, perhaps conservation is the new idea which has taken time to be sort of accepted, because conservation does not exist in a context of coexistence. You know, like you said, if I'm dependent on the bee, I don't need to conserve the bee. I am very clear that I am because the bee is, you know. But where you introduce sort of a new method of being, then, pardon the pun, then of course now you have to introduce new ways of operating. And there's something that you've mentioned which I think is just so interesting, which is the nexus also, and just continuing in that frame of the nexus between the foreigner and the Kenyan or the African on the ground, those who live with or live near elephants. And of course, the other side of this foreigner conversation is the market. That as there has grown an affluent Far East, particularly an affluent Far East population, has had greater demand and greater appetite for ivory. Mwajuma, I know that this is in a sense, it's almost a very big declaration question for you, but how do we begin to showcase and tell stories like these to those audiences so that they can understand that the bangles and the earrings and the trinkets and the letter openers and the little accessories for kimonos in Japan that they hold so dear as an accessory are actually a devastation to us and our heritage? How do we tell our stories, and what stories should we be telling to those who fuel the demand for ivory so that we can stop that demand or at least reduce it?
Well, I think for one, there is nothing as beautiful as filmmaking, because it gives you an opportunity to be able to bring forth things that maybe people are shy about, things that people are angry about, things that someone would not really want to talk about. And one thing about filmmaking that I've come to learn is it's a free space. It's totally a free space. And I like the fact that right now, when you look at the film making strategy in Kenya, it's actually freer than it used to be before. So for example, if we want to get our stories out there and talk about what is very close to our hearts, for example, like talking about the elephants, talking about our kimonos, our jewelry and stuff like this, and what they mean to us, and just letting people out there relate to it in a way that is acceptable to them and to us. So that will take me back to, as filmmakers, we just need to be able to first and foremost, research and know what is it that matters. What is that subject that would speak and speak well and present us as Kenyans out there, and as Africans, of course, out there in a light that is acceptable to us. Write our own stories, tell our own stories in the best way that we know how. There is no one who can ever tell you a story in the best way possible as yourself. That is what I believe. So if we want to talk about what Kenya is about, what wearing a kimono means to us, what, just this little things, they might seem little to someone else probably who's out there, but to us, it's massive. This is our heritage. This is our upbringing. This is our culture at the end of it all. So I just think if we get to a spot where, one, we are not ashamed of what we are, because I think at some point we get to a space where someone doesn't want to tell it as it is. You want to sugarcoat it. You want to make it look, I don't know what, yet the beauty is in telling it as it is. That's it. I mean, it's beautiful to tell it as it is. So for me, that's what I think. We need to just be open and free spirited and embrace us. There is no one who will embrace you if you do not embrace yourself. So we just need to embrace us first and foremost, and then now let it out to the world. Then it's going to be a beautiful thing, and the reception is definitely going to be massive and much, much better than we'd ever expect. Yeah.
Wow. I think it's actually interesting because I had all of these notes. I've got to tell you, I had all of these notes sort of about the movie and about the different issues that come up. But I love that you just said it's first of all about embracing us and about our stories being about us and being about what's important and valuable to us. I think, Summer, I want to ask you this because so when I was like, knee high to a grasshopper, when I was really, really young, my mother actually worked in wildlife conservation.
Wow.
And so this is me about to date myself, but I recall that you would go to older people's houses, sort of like the senior people in wildlife conservation, and they had things that stools. I don't know if you remember this, Nana, or this was ever an experience for you, but they would have things like stools made out of elephant stumps, and lamps made out of gazelle, like gazelle feet. This was it was sort of like, it was very posh to have, and these would be sort of like people who were the real so-and-sos in the early 80s and thereabouts. We had, of course, a president who very famously had a stick that had ivory on it. Fimboya Nyayo had this ivory and gold overlay to it, almost tacitly acquiescing to the fact that having animal trophies, not necessarily poaching, but having animal trophies was a statement of stature, even here. If you think about it, the Columbus hats, or the Columbus monkey hair hats, the leopard coats, and I'm sure in each one of our cultures we can sort of tick off something that was a sign of that prestige. The lion's tooth, if you were a Moran and you had led the raid that got the lion. Are these ultimately somewhere sitting in our subconscious as almost the symbols of our own success, of our own prestige, of our own status, and therefore we shouldn't hope not to kill any animals? We should hope maybe to kill only the ones for the purpose of ensuring that status continues. Now, I'm being the devil's advocate here because I have a very strong view on this, so I've got to say this in the interest of just fairness, because if you ask me this question, you'll get a very different answer. But in a sense, should we accept that some kind of killing of wildlife is going to happen for the purpose of acquiring trophies, and therefore the issue is to manage it? Or should we, like some conservationists push, just say stop, full stop, don't touch them, the end? Where do you fall?
That's a really good question. First of all, I like the fact that you've highlighted that it's not just foreigners who would kill different species for fashion accessories, but something that we also used to do in the olden days. And that being said, we were at a point where we had a balance. We had a balance of people and wildlife. But right now, our population is growing at a high, extreme rate. That's why even you're hearing Elon Musk is looking for Planet B. Because if we don't have a balance with just nature itself, with the trees, with the wildlife, then we'll crumble as human beings. Bringing me back to the other point of we are all connected. It's a whole web of, it's a whole chain of connection. So right now, with the population of human beings, if we continue with our old acts of killing different species, such as the lions, for us to have a certain heart that shows supremacy, then there will be no balance. Because right now, even the population of lions, the population of rhinos, everything, antelopes itself, the herbivores, they are slowly reducing and we are highly increasing. So what we are doing as conservationists is we are trying to maintain them as much as possible for the future generation, because with the population, with how much we are growing, we need to move at a pace with the animals. So I don't think it will be right for us to continue with our acts of having some, for example, fur as on our clothing, or just what you've mentioned, because that small act, no matter how small it is, it's big. So yes.
I love that small act. Go ahead, Mwajuma. You were going to say something.
I'm just thinking, while someone's talking, I'm just thinking, where does that leave us? Does that leave us at a point where we should say that if the animals are probably dying out of, I would say, natural causes, maybe that's fine now, then we can be able to say, then we wouldn't feel guilty, like in a way to say, you didn't feel guilty that, oh yeah, we had to kill that elephant for me to be able to wear this hat. I didn't actually kill it, it just died. And then, I don't know. So then I wonder, will we not get to a point where, these things that we showcase to show our traditions that are very dependent on animals, for example, are we going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to have them anymore? Like those, those two whatevers, the jackets that are made from the cow, whatever's skin or something like this, or a lion or an elephant, something. Are we going to get to a point where we shall not be having such things? And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe someone should tell us. But that's what I'm thinking right now.
When you've mentioned that, I just remembered what our president Arap Moi did when they found the ivory and banned it up. Whenever we're having these conversations on ivory trade, some of my colleagues ask me the same question: did we really have to ban that much ivory? Why didn't we have to just sell it and then use the money for conservation? But in real sense, how you act as a country, there's a quote that says, there's a quote about the tone from the top leader says it all about the how people will act. So what a leader will do in terms of poaching, if it means he or she burning down ivory, that will give an example that this is not allowed in our country, and it will build on policies. However, if we have the space of accepting that, we already found this ivory, let's just kill it, or this animal died, let's just sell its skin out there, then you're giving people more reasons as to why they should also do it. People will be a bit open-minded, and there'll be a dark, I don't know what to call it exactly, but all this will be through criminal networks, because the top leaders have given space for it to happen. Now, when you talk about should we put a stop completely on accessories or just clothing such as leather, just what I mentioned earlier. If we don't have a balance with with nature, then we are forced to put a stop on some of the things that we have learned to be normal, and grow and adapt to something else that is going to be normal. You know, something with human beings is we are very quick to adapt. So if you put a policy on any clothing material that's linked to maybe animal skin or just the teeth itself, then our kids will grow up knowing that this is not right. And therefore we'll slowly start growing our population of animals. So I don't think that's something, I know it's going to be a bit difficult to get there, but then at the same time, it comes with a lot of acceptance that we are going through the 6th mass extinction. So if we want to overcome this, of course, we have to sacrifice a few things. We can't just combat climate change without sacrificing some of the things that we considered normal. So it's all in our policies, it's all in our governance. And I think one of the ways to do it is to just adapt to what was not normal. Yes. Just the same way our great grandparents were not comfortable wearing clothes in the beginning when just the foreigners came in, and they slowly adapted, and now the women were all dressed up and they started doing their hair. It's the same way we'll start also not wearing animal skin.
I have a question. Because when I listen to you, obviously there is a lot of education, awareness that needs to be done. Because I ask myself, the young person in Muranga, why should they care whether an elephant is killed in the Mara? You know, because the effects are so gradual. You can't see them, you can't feel them, you can hear about them. So that's one thing. Why would a person in Muranga, because I think for me, when we are working with support, you know, working with supporting the environment and partners, it's that thing. How do we get that person in Muranga to care that an elephant or any other animal is killed in the Mara? And if they don't see an elephant, how do we make them connect with the environment they're in? What can they do in their environment that would make a difference? Not necessarily, those are two sort of questions in one. There's one, how do we connect, you know, the distance, but also in their own environment. What do we tell them? What do we teach them about the environment where they can now start connecting with conservation?
I think to answer both questions, the answer is education. And what we talked about in the beginning, the fact that I believe even when we are growing up, we don't have that knowledge on wildlife conservation. When in real sense out there in the European world, they are taught the science and the facts about wildlife and why we need to coexist. Now, if you bring that to Africa and you bring this guy from Muranga and tell him that you need to plant trees so that this and this happen. The other day, I don't know if this is right for me to bring it up here, but the other day we had political leader here in Kenya who was advocating for cutting down of trees so that people don't feel cold at night. I mean, okay, I was really trying to understand that thinking. And if you have people who see the natural world as a burden, then we won't go anywhere with wildlife conservation. However, if we sit down, educate people on the concepts of conservation and the importance of it and what they can benefit from, because also human beings, the thing with human beings, they don't like listening to something unless they're benefiting out of it. So there's the sustainability part of it. If you can tell them by doing tree planting, you will benefit with this, and that. By you conserving elephants and lions, you'll benefit from this, and that. And one thing that I like about Masai Mara and what they've done with sustainability and women is the Ushanga community. Such a simple thing, such a simple activity of selling what Mwajuma is wearing has grown women to appreciate wildlife for what it is. So if you can come up with activities whereby women and also men can do things associated to wildlife, is also linked to tourism, then in the process we'll end up learning and even embracing what we have as Africans. And then at the same time, our systems, our leaders need to offer education systems that are aligned with young people and communities learning about conservation. We have poachers who right now are rangers in Kenya Wildlife Services. And as much as they give their testimonies whereby probably they had no choice, just what Poachers was portraying, they had no choice to kill these animals. They were trying to just bring in income to sustain their families. And right now they are working under Kenya Wildlife Services, or they're taking care of wildlife in different conservancies. Why? Because they were educated to understand the importance of it. And why also they did this? Because they were given the platform where they will work and also get income from it. So if you get employment in conservation, then we'll have covered a whole problem in poaching, human wildlife conflict and all that.
You know, I love the example that you've given, which I think is a really appropriate example. The one of the trees and that call, which, like you, I really struggled to understand and to contextualize. And I came across this really great quote, which was something, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it said something like, thank God that trees don't transmit what was it? They don't transmit internet bundles. All they do is provide oxygen. Yeah. And I thought, ooh, you know, right there, you know. Yes, yeah. Thank goodness they're not going to interfere with my time on Twitter. All they're going to do is interfere with the amount of clean air that I have. And just thinking, actually, what are we really fighting over and for? And I think also there's something to be said about thinking globally but acting locally, that it's so vital that the activities that we're undertaking are contextualized within us. You might not be able to tell someone from an area where there is no experience of elephants that elephant conservation is very important and therefore they should do this in their area. But if they understand that it is important to this whole country of ours that we call Kenya and that we call home, and that my actions, whether or not I live in an elephant area, has such an important effect on my brother and sister who is on that sort of front line, then suddenly there's a context to it. And education, you're right, is very important. Now I want to bring it back to Sorry, go ahead. Yes. Yes, you may. Yes.
I've just remembered there's something that I think Nana pointed out that probably I didn't answer. She mentioned that you never notice what the impact that's made when you kill an elephant. The people in Muranga won't notice the effects of human-wildlife conflict as long as they're not affected. But slowly, gradually, you start noticing. And what I said about the bees and the elephants, it's a very powerful aspect when it comes to conservation, because the bees actually depend on elephants, and we as human beings depend on the bees. And when bees go extinct, or when elephants do go extinct officially, years later, you will notice there was a huge difference on what happened in 2020 and what's going to happen in 2040. There'll be either less food production here in Africa. Tourism will be affected, because what are you coming to see if not the big five? I mean, they have deers, they have antelopes. And what will be the image of Africa will just change to be, quite very typical. So it's a change that you don't notice. it's a shame that it will take time for you to analyze, but in future, when you sit down, you think, oh my God, okay, we actually had elephants and now they are not here. So I wouldn't want for us to get to that point where we are thinking, okay, we have to now enclose all the elephants in a zoo or in a conservancy for kids to come see, and the elephants can't migrate. I think we are at a point where we need to think ahead and not wait for it to happen for us to act. So that was just a by the way. I've just realized.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant, because thinking ahead is also just thinking towards that future that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That the short-term thinking of the life that we are living today has got a long-term impact into a life that we won't be in, but which will make such a difference. I come from the Rift Valley, and when we drive to Shag, so I'm a Nakuru girl, and when you got to about Gilgil, when I was really, really young, you'd find some giraffe, not very many, but some giraffe, loads and loads of zebra, loads and loads of sort of dik and all sorts of, particularly the deer family. Yeah. And then slowly and slowly and slowly, first the giraffes disappeared. Now there's very few. Then the zebras. Now there's very few. Then, you sort of spot one and you'll yell, look, I saw one on your way past El Mentaita. You're right. It makes a difference. But I think these differences and the education that can be done is done best and is done most powerfully through the stories that we tell. And Mwajuma, I want to sort of come round to the importance of growing, not just film nights like the Commonwealth Business Women Kenya is doing so in such a focused way, but also the importance of growing matcha wood. Or River Road wood as a real industry, not just for entertainment but edutainment, where we begin not just to tell our stories but to shape and form opinions, ideas and thoughts for present and also for future generations. Speak to the importance of the film industry in doing this.
Well, I'm glad you've brought this up, and this is a very important subject when you look at the film industry in Kenya generally. Because for one, if I could go back to when Machawood began, we realized that Machawood began and guys started submitting their films, and then it was on a low down something. But then after, people realized that this is actually an actual festival, and it gives opportunity, and especially for people who are upcoming, because fresh minds, new things are coming up, a lot of new things that people can talk about. And such festivals give avenue for such people and young filmmakers, for example, to actually tell their stories, submit their films, and in turn, grow the film industry at large. And basically that's what has been happening. The same thing with Riverwood. I don't know why Riverwood didn't go on after the last that it happened. I think we didn't have the award ceremony last year. I don't know why, I don't know what happened. But look at it, most of us as filmmakers were really looking forward to it, because you're thinking, I am doing this short film, I am looking at Machawood, I'm looking at Kalasha, I am looking at Riverwood. Before you can even think about taking your film on an international market, and for the new filmmakers, you start looking at what is here, what is here, what is Kenya offering, And in this way, then this is a very beautiful platform, because the kind of stories that you see in this platform, the kind of films that you see, and the kind of stories that people are telling are so amazing. Recently, we had the smartphone film competition. It's something that if you sit and look at it, you'll be thinking, why am I shooting my movie with just a phone? I need a camera, I need lights, I don't know what and what. But look at the kind of content that came out here, People literally took it as serious as that and actually submitted. And Kenya Films Commission also had it, and it had so many submissions. And during COVID-19, and actually for KFC, it was the subject was about COVID-19. So you're here at home, COVID has happened. You cannot get access to that entire big crew that you want. What do? Use your phone. This is an entirely beautiful platform that gave people an opportunity to tell their stories and to get their work out there. So for me, I would encourage such festivals to just, keep at it. And if anything, let's have more. Let's have more. This is how it's open. This is actually how we're going to open ourselves as filmmakers in Kenya to to the world, you know, and to international platform. This is how we're going to get ourselves recognized by Netflix and stuff like that, you know. So we just need to get our house in order first, even as we look forward to getting, you know, like, as we look forward to getting ourselves out there, we need to start here. We need to and appreciate the little and the much that we have here and take it seriously. Because it's one thing, I mean, if I give you this pen and probably I want you to write something here that maybe I will use it for this particular reason. If you write it, then you use it for this particular reason. You just never know who else is going to see it and maybe give you a platform for you to be able to showcase your work, even on an international platform. So for me, I'm pro that, man. Let's do it. Let's have more of Riverwood. Let's have more of Machawood. Let's have smartphone film competition and all those things. And let's not shy away from participating in this. And above all, let's tell our stories.
I love that. Above all, let's tell our stories. So I congratulated you right at the start for your first anniversary, and you've done something very brave, which we're seeing young people do now, which is take their lives and order their lives in terms of what it is that they want to do, when they intend to do it, and how they intend to do it. And you have taken a gap year to start and stabilize Wild Now. What do you see for the next, let's say, 10 years? Like, what would the ideal be for you in the next 10 years in this area of not just conservation, but in the whole conversation of our heritage, wildlife, and the engagement between human-wildlife conflict?
Well, I see a very bright future with that. I'm very positive when it comes to wildlife, actually. A lot of people ask, how are you going to overcome this when, in real sense, climate change is still growing? How are we going to overcome climate change when you only have 7 years for us to just go back to the normal climate changing? So when I sit up, when I sit down and think about it, first of all, we have technology. Technology has made everything easier. So incorporating a lot of innovations and changing people's minds, especially young people, because with Wild Now, right now, we've been able to mobilize over 300 young people. And we are slowly now growing to different countries, doing different projects that are affecting the countries that our representatives are in. And it's a small step right now, but when we continue like this and get the support that we need from the government, get such advocacy that we have right now, a lot of women talking about it, because it's also an industry that's well dominated mostly by men, if you look at it. So if you have more women, more young people talking about it, then the future is bright. I am very sure right now, even with our population of elephants, it's actually doubled. And that's something I'm proud of, because it shows that we can do it. Now that we are not comfortable with the numbers of elephants that we have, of course, we want it to still grow, but we have made it possible. Now, if you focus on other species, for example, right now we are dealing with pangolins. Pangolins are about to go extinct if no action is taken. If we do what we did with the elephants, what we are doing with the rhinos, with all the species, then what will be impossible of us not saving our wildlife? So with Wild Now, I see a very bright future with wildlife, but also a very bright future for young people in conservation, and also just to empower women, because I'm a woman and I'm doing what was known to be kind of very impossible to do. My parents are still, they were very skeptical on me taking a gap year to just run Wild Now, but nowadays they are definitely in support of what I do. So if you can have more young people and parents embracing this and telling young kids that, you know what, if you want to go study environmental science, do it. If you want to do animal biology, do it. Then I'm 100%. I can see a very bright future with young people and our wildlife. And that's what we hope to do with Wild Now. So 10 years down the line, we hope to mobilize more young people, not just in Africa, and to save more and more species out there. Yes.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful thing to say. And I thank you both for this conversation. And I want to leave everyone who's watching with this thought. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has. And out of the storytelling through Poacher, and out of the work from people like Some with Wild Now and others, and we know that there are very many others of them, Jim Justice Nyamo, of course, and Elephant Neighbors Center and others on ground and international support. We're not just the people who could change the world. You are the people that are changing the world for better. So we thank you and we honor you. Nana, to you.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. These are such deep, important conversations. And like climate change, you may not see the effect of this conversation today or tomorrow, but trust me, once the conversation starts, the ripple effects are unstoppable. So as I echo Renee's comments, we honor you for being here. We honor you, for doing what you're already doing in your space, in your capacity. Let me share something about, I started by saying I was in the Mara. And because of the COVID situation and the lockdown and so on, we were not having a lot of international tourists. But immediately the borders, the county borders opened and we're able to drive across the counties. That's when we got an opportunity to go to the Mara and see this great migration. The beauty about this time's adventure was that 80% of the tourists were Kenyans. 80%. In my hotel, we were 100% Kenyans. I have never been so happy in my entire life just to be surrounded by Kenyans like me. All out to see our wildlife the way we are saying, let's pay those park fees, let's visit the zoos. That is the only way we can appreciate. And I also want to challenge my fellow Kenyans, let us be local tourists.
Thank you.
If you live in Muranga, go to the coast and enjoy the beach. By the Muranga is my place. That's why I keep talking about it. If you live at the coast, go and climb Mount Kenya.
Yeah.
You have to be local tourists. It's the only way that we'll begin to understand that I gotta plant a tree here to save the snow cap in Mount Kenya.
Yeah. Well said.
So that we are not closed to my little county because I can't see Mount Kenya, therefore that melting snow cap doesn't affect me. We have to travel so that we begin to appreciate the beauty of our country. And as we are educated, now we begin to connect. If I don't plant a tree, if I don't save an animal, that ocean, that snow cap, that forest will no longer be for me and my children. That's my challenge. And in ending, at Commonwealth Business Women Network Kenya, first of all, I want to invite Mwajuma and Maureen to be part of our youth and environment docket. You have so much to offer, and what you are doing, we want to take it to the Commonwealth family.
Thank you.
For the rest of us, creatives, we are working on a creatives training. If you're a creative, email us on info@cbwnkenya.org. info@cbwnkenya.org. Look out for that training. At the end of this year, we have an inter-counties Christmas online exhibition, both for services and goods. Inter-county Christmas online exhibition. You're a businesswoman, goods and services. This is your platform. It will run from the 23rd of November for a week. So again, info@cbwnkenya.org. Don't miss out on the opportunity. I say asante sana, na lazima tukumbuke ni ndovu zetu. Those are ours.
Yeah.
Jessica, if you are there, thank you very much. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, ladies. Renee,
Thank you.
honor. You have a way of just unpacking these conversations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you, ladies. And thank you to everyone who's watching now and into the future that is now.
Bye. Bye.